I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are copies of the agenda back there, which is a first for this year for the Budget Committee. For any of you out in the audience that wants it. Tonight we'll start with Parks and Rec and follow with the library, and then we'll, just for all of us, we're going to review the DVD as other business at the end. So who's heading up Parks and Rec?
Fred just left. Oh, I want to apologize because I left Dale out. Didn't call. I thought Dave was on this committee, and then Dave had taken himself off this committee, and so it was supposedly skipped Fred and myself. So I thought we were fine, and then Dale calls me and said, "Oh, no, you're not on this committee," and he was. So I apologize to him personally, but I.
Quite all right.
Yeah, didn't bother you at all, did it? Okay, Fred, so you're leading Parks and Rec?
Certainly, yeah. We met on Friday, it was this Monday. I did a 2-for-1 special this week at the library and Parks and Rec, so that date's wrong. It was Monday the 17th. Philip, myself, and Herb met.
Excuse me, Fred, I'm sorry for interrupting. I did not get the Parks and Rec copy. I have the library copy of the notes.
Thank you. And, overall, the budget was down 1.7%. And the capital reserve fund skating rink are addressed separately. Essentially, wages and benefits were up 1.7%. The selectmen took a look at Herb's wage, and they had to bring him into compliance with the town's personnel wage scale. That's how you get that number. That's why they raised his budget figure, his wage. Part-time wages were the biggest cost driver. That was it ran pretty thinly this past year. And there was a reclassification, or money budgeted towards reclassification this coming year. And there's $500 needed in the overtime budget because this past year, and I guess every year during the beach season, if somebody calls in sick, then they're stuck. And per the town policy, in this case Tracy would have the choice of overtime or comp time. Is that correct?
For hourly employees that work over 40.
Okay. In that case, it could be potentially Tracy. She
would be the only. She manages the beach in the summer, and she's the one that it would be affecting.
Okay. And I guess while we're there, any questions on that?
Back to the part-time wages. How did the reclassification, what happened that caused all that? Because that's a big increase.
Basically, the reclassification, and as Fred said, that's part of the increase, but it's something that we've been discussing for a little bit over a year now, and it's basically with Tracy's position, the certification she needs to maintain and the supervisory responsibilities that she has throughout the summer down at the beach, basically trying to bring her position up to more accurately reflect her responsibilities and requirements of her job position.
Okay.
And that, my note said that that's going to start at April 1st.
I believe that's the way it was budgeted. Is that accurate, Scott? So that basically would take effect after the town vote. And that would also reset her anniversary date. So I think when you look through, that's why the merit line is so low for those part-time wages, because basically that would, merit reclassification kind of in one for her.
Okay.
That's probably what we spent the most time on as well, so figure that out. Moving on to page 57. Operating expenses down 14.4% over the past year. Looking down some of the items, the professional development and training, notice it $1,800 for the NRPA Nationals were not included this year. The selectmen actually removed that from the budget, and that was viewed as something we can sort of get away with that one time, but probably not twice in a row without causing some potential liability issues and or having to maintain that certification some other way.
Where is that held?
It moves around each year, Sue, so next year is probably about as far away as it gets. It's in Anaheim. It's a week-long training, but it moves from different convention centers every year, so that's not always putting a burden on one area of the country having to travel the distance.
But Herb's not going to that,
No,
to be clear.
That's what was eliminated out of the budget.
Okay, so last year, where was it?
Last year it was in Minneapolis. This year it's in Atlanta. So I mean, it does move around.
He's lobbying for Laconia next year. But
Believe me, we were lobbying for Town Hall in Guilford, New Hampshire.
So other than that, from the 2011 budget, it's essentially flat without that, down 5% actually, $75. Meetings and dues flat, and travel down a little bit. Onto page 58. The general supplies, you see there's a bunch of items there. Some of those are actually revenue generators. Like when they print commercial guest tickets, if that goes to a place like Fireside Inn, we'll get beach passes and that sort of thing, and that money goes back into the general fund.
Yep.
So there's money getting shelled out there, but some of it's coming back in. And again, that, like most of these other operating line items, is down again this year. Old Home Days, it's flat every year, and that doesn't include, there's about $20,000 that's fundraised every year to pick up the balance of that. Community band, that's keep that money in there. The request is to keep that flat. Vehicle maintenance, this is one item that we hope can stay flat with no repercussions, where he's still driving that old F-450 pickup truck that used to be DPW's. 250. What I said. You said
Yeah.
450, yeah.
Come on, don't exaggerate.
Cummins diesel.
I was gonna say, a 450, that's really big.
F-250. So then you
I didn't have any
that
other questions.
keeps trucking from now on, and you have something, Skip?
Since I was not able to get to the meeting, I do have a question. Obviously, last year we had the kerfuffle over the community band. So I guess the question is, I take it that the selectmen didn't want to have a repeat of that.
You could view it that way, Skip, the way that we viewed it is, this is what the voters wanted.
Yeah.
And as a result, this current board listens to what the majority of Guilford voters wanted. That's how they came out on the town deliberative night. That's what they passed that night. And people were in favor of it, and that's why we left it at that.
It's actually pretty hard to argue with. Because I even interpret it the same way.
It would be nice if they could do some fundraising on their own. I'd had to participate in this a little bit rather than, expecting the town is going to pay $1,500 every year. I mean, it would just, a couple of people said to me, if they passed the can at Old Home Day, for the community band, they'd probably be very surprised at what they would wind up with.
Right, we've been talking about the supervisors of the checklist and the stipends and all of that. And in fact, what's buried in here is the stipend for the band leader. And I guess, Herb, what is the stipend for the band leader in this? Do you remember?
I want to say out of the 1,500, the stipend for the band leader, I want to say it's around maybe 900.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's
something
over
like that.
half.
You know, we give them the one-time stipend, and they have their, basically their business administrator for the band that handles it. The rest of it, I believe, goes towards the cost for sheet music, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Sue. I have much less heartburn about the sheet music, because yeah, you do need sheet music. But everybody else in the band is a volunteer. And I just, again, it goes to everything else. We are citizen volunteers. And I just have a hard time, given some of the arguments that were made last year, I would rather see that either a non-paid position or pass the can kind of deal. I mean, everybody else is doing it, and I see no reason why not. Dave?
This isn't specifically on the band issue, it's just a question I wanted to ask her that comes back in the general principles of things. The other programs that you run, which include like the youth sports, the basketballs, the soccer, et cetera, that the kids do, those are all paid programs, that's correct? Meaning that parents pay a nominal fee for their children's enrollment in these programs?
The vast majority of them, yes. But if you look back at account number 2 through 7, programs instructors, there are a number of community-wide events, I guess you could call them, that we do budget nominal amounts for, that we don't necessarily charge the participants for. Most of these, with the exception of senior adult programs, are geared towards youth, whether it's the summer water carnival down at the beach, the annual Halloween party, our egg hunt spring programs, and the bike safety program that we do with the police, and then also the after-school sports program we run in conjunction with the school. So there are a handful of community-wide events that we do budget for.
But those are all one-time event. The Halloween's a one-off, the Easter's a one-off.
With the exception of the seniors, which that's used for programming throughout the year, and the after-school sports is a 4-session program. There's 4 different sessions throughout the school year. The others are one-time events.
So how many concerts are held with the band?
The community band runs 5 set concerts in the summer. Additionally, they also play in the Old Home Day Parade. They play on Old Home Day in the evening, and then they also run the holiday concert in December. So it's a total of 8 performances.
I tend to, because a lot of other programs that we do, there are paid participation of some form or other. I tend to agree with the point that Skip is making. We do, or we should reimburse for the sheet music, those types of things. But, people do get enjoyment. They're not playing, but they're listening. They could pass a can and help support the effort too. I realize it's a good thing, but by the same token, things are pretty tight these days.
They do pass the can, to my understanding, at the Christmas concert at the school, because you've got a seated audience, and it's easy to pass a can. Here, it's very fluid about people coming and going down at the venue on the
Village Field.
Thank you, whoever said that.
Yeah.
And so people are coming and going during the concert. You don't have it's harder to pass a can. I think passing the can, we passed the can already at Old Home Day during the parade. We've got people passing the can. There's just so many times you can pass a can. As far as I know from people who are in other community bands, every community band in the Lakes region pays their director. Singing, and I'm on the board of the Pemmy Choral Society, sheet music is very expensive. Very expensive. It goes up every year, and you cannot copy sheet music because of the copyright laws. The other thing about expecting somebody who has gone to school, may not come from even from our community, and has degrees in music, these people expect to be paid for this is their livelihood. And so I just don't think we can expect somebody to step up. I mean, maybe there is somebody out there, but you don't want to lose a trained professional if you want, unless you're willing to lose the sound.
Sue?
Phyllis, is there somebody that specifically passes the can for Old Home Day for the band?
No, not for the band. I'm saying we already have kids passing the band during the parade
For our old
to
home day. They
defray
raised 20 grand.
to defray, for the fireworks and whatever. And, to say that we're going to constantly keep passing the can. We want the can for this. We want the can for that.
Go ahead, Ray.
I think, this is minute, and you know what? There are a lot of people that enjoy this, and I mean, cutting it to me is negligent. What we're taking so much away from people now in different other areas. Why can't we leave something in so that people will at least enjoy it, so we don't get Guilford is already building a negative reputation in the Lakes region. So
Surprised at that.
because we're cutting the way we're cutting the budget and stuff.
We're not cutting.
To me, it's
I don't mind
limited.
statements, but I think that one's inaccurate. But anyway, I agree with you. I look at us, we're a subcommittee of the legislative body, which is the voter. If the voter votes this in, we look kind of foolish
Keep
to be
taking it out.
hammering them every year to try and take it out. You know what's going to happen. We'll go to the deliberative session, not the deliberative session, we'll go to the town or the public session for the budget committee, and we'll get hammered. We'll vote and we'll put it back in. So what's the point of doing that? Now, I think you have some good suggestions to suggest, why don't you try and raise some money and lower this yourself? But I don't, if the voters want it, I have a hard time fighting them, because that's who we're representing. Dave?
Well, we've seen in other areas, voters always don't get what they want, but in terms,
Yep.
in terms of
Sneaked that one in, didn't he?
in terms of this particular item, we as a subcommittee legislative body are voted in to look at it more closely than the average voter does.
Yeah.
That is part of what we're supposed to be doing, is looking at these costs.
Right, and we've done that, and we got turned around. All I'm saying, do we keep hammering that rock?
If we vote on it tonight, recommend for or recommend against, the voters still have their options, and we've
Yeah.
always abided by the voters.
Right.
Yeah.
And this year, we've already set the precedence of saying we need to reduce the stipends.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, I
that-
think that's the appropriate thing to do, is somebody will make the recommendation on the budget, and we'll see what it comes out and how it's voted.
And I will be perfectly honest, I think that I will be making a motion to that, because I'll be making a motion for all the stipends in all the budgets, because I think it's time to clamp down. And, not to start a war, Phyllis, but to your point about the professional leading the organization, we all here are trained folks. I'm a trained systems analyst. I mean, I get paid for doing stuff like this, but I'm not getting a stipend either, okay? And to be able to protect the band leader in that fashion, I think it's just I'm sorry, but I just agree.
But we went into this knowing we weren't getting paid.
Understood.
They went into it getting paid. And
Well,
they're paid, and we've paid a professional. If everybody else is doing it, and I know just because everybody eats 10 gallons of ice cream doesn't mean I have to, but they'll go find someplace else. There'll be another town that'll want them, and then we'll be sitting here with egg on our face without a band.
All right, we know where we stand on this particular subject. Why don't you consider on, Fred, and we'll vote on it when the time comes.
All right. Let's see, on to what used to just be utilities, they've split that up. Electricity and water is now, it's all up a little bit from last year, right? The electricity?
Up a lot.
Up a lot, and so we brought that back down. To tell you the truth, I forget exactly why that was.
That's just your share, your department share, right?
That's again because of it used to be all under.
'Cause it's split up by
categories,
department.
Now we're trying to do that. That's why it says 2009, 2010, 000.
Yeah. On that, on the facility maintenance, page 60. Again, that was dropped a lot from 14,000 to 10,000. You can see the past couple of years what the trend was. Looks like they've actually been over budgeted a little bit, and they brought that back down to reflect, hopefully, what can be done in reality.
Does the hood have to be done this year? Or all-
It's something that's done every year.
Oh, the service, okay. I thought
Yeah.
it was a new.
No, it's annual
Yeah.
service and cleaning of it, yeah.
And the women's room at the beach, was that the?
That is, that's a replacement of the door at the women's room that needs to be done for next year.
Yeah.
I did want to go back and ask a question on the electrical cost. The article that was in the paper, I believe it was last night's meeting, where there was a discussion of the new electrical service. Does that apply to the ball fields, or is that only apply, those electrical costs only apply to the buildings itself with that new electrical service?
No, it's every meter we have,
Including the ball fields and so.
including the ball fields and the tennis courts. And I believe the ball field, is that on the meter, or is Stone Park on a meter, or is it a flat rate?
Stonewall Park is, I believe it has a meter, but that does not have lights there.
Oh, okay.
You're probably thinking of the Frank Gore Field, which the lights there are actually covered through the Calvert and takes over
Oh,
that
okay.
across. They
No,
have
I
their own
knew that
meter.
we got a bill for Stonewall Park.
That's more for the irrigation system over there,
Okay,
and that's
but I
very
didn't know what it was
nominal
for. I
amount.
kind of assumed it was for lights,
Yeah.
but,
No, it's a very nominal amount over at
Okay.
Stonewall.
so yes, for any of the metered,
And that's a one-year contract, sort of, see how
Correct.
it goes?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
On the utilities, is this a long-term contract with the new utility company?
No, it's 1 year.
1 year. And where are they out of? I've not heard of them before.
They are out of Massachusetts.
And they're what,
They're big.
purchasing electricity and,
Jeff,
Pardon?
if you're gonna speak much more, you gotta come up to the thing here. Respecting the integrity of our new DVD process.
They're an energy provider in the New England area, and they provide energy to the electric grid. I'm not sure how
They separate
physically that works, you know, flipping switches on and off, because they obviously don't know at any given point in time
what the
exactly
demand is.
how much electricity we are consuming. But they're guaranteed to provide, I'm guessing, the grid, the system, the amount of electricity that we use. And so public service can take their electricity and give it to somebody else.
ISO manages that whole thing around here.
Okay.
I have another question. The lifeguard swimsuits at $750. Could you, I don't recall that item being as high in years past.
It's actually stayed level the last couple of years, and that is roughly the cost for purchasing the swimsuits for our guards each year.
And several suits per person?
It's 1 suit per person.
And how many people?
We had last year, I believe, 15 guards on our lifeguard staff. Usually ranges about between $40 and $50 per person.
$50. This seems high. And the postage, $600,
It's for regular mailings throughout the year.
1,300 pieces.
If that's what it works out to, yeah, that's roughly about where we're at after the 4 quarters.
And what are the pieces? Again, just refresh my memory.
Regular everyday mailings, whether it's, requests for sponsorships, thank yous. The only program that we send out mailer reminders are basically quarterly newsletters to our senior program, and that's only the members. They don't have access to email. but just regular day correspondence that need to go through the mail.
Just seems like a tremendous number.
I'm just curious on the school board equipment rental. Just what do we use that for?
Basically, it's to cover the cost. We need scuba services each year to put in and take out the swim raft and the gym buoys down at the beach.
That's what I assumed it was.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just a question on the staffing. Are these all adults, when I say adults, 18 plus year age guards and staff that you use now?
Not necessarily. Certainly we like to have as many senior guards as we can. I want to say this past year, all but 2 or 3 of our guard staff were over 18. You know, we hire American Red Cross certified lifeguards, and their standard is they have to be at least 15 years of age to take their course. Obviously, we try to retain our quality returning guard staff as long as we feel that they've performed up to task. But we can't necessarily guarantee that they're over 18.
So it was just a question of the mix of your employees.
The majority of them, I would say, are college-age students, although we typically have a handful of you know, younger high school age, I guess you could call them.
And what do you see for turnover?
It
Rough numbers.
really varies year to year. Last year we expected a whole lot, and I believe we only lost 2 guards, had 2 new. Typically, I would say on an average year we lose 3 or 4. That being said, you know, we had a lot of senior guards this year. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a higher turnover rate, but you can't necessarily tell, you know. What they think may happen from the end of the season to the start of the next isn't always necessarily what actually happens.
Yeah, question for you.
Yep.
If I remember right, there was a revolving fund that was set up for operational type of programs.
For program expenses, yes.
Right, and I didn't see it here in the budget at all. I know it's sort of off budget,
Yep.
but there wasn't even a mention of that. And so my question is, how has that been going? You know, have we gotten a little bit of an increase in the amounts of that fund? And the other question I have is, and again, I have to apologize for missing the subcommittee meeting, but with all the programs that you're running, have you ever determined what a per head cost is for some of these programs to be able to bring back to us to say, okay, given this program, this is how much it actually costs to run?
I do up revenue expense reports for each program. I'd have to go specifically and look at them individually.
Okay.
Regarding your first question, as far as the revolving fund, it's not a budgeted item that tax dollars have to contribute to, but annually, in the past, we've basically expended slightly over $30,000 out of there in program expenses, with revenue coming in to cover that. This past year is a little bit different because with the some of the part-time staffing costs that we incurred in our department last year, the suggestion was try to increase program fees and try to cover those costs. So this year our revenues are not quite to the level where we hope. We're close. We do have a balance in there. And my thought process was, because through the seasons you see, you know, highs and lows as far as where registration numbers and revenues come in, is to sort of give it the full year to see where we are. So we're slightly under right now, knowing that we still have one of our 3 big, I guess you could call them registration revenues in youth basketball, which happens beginning in November, still to come. As far as normal years prior to this, we've been slightly higher on the revenue side than we are at the expenditures in the revolving fund. Certainly that fund was not set up to be a money maker, and that's not the way it's intended with the state RSAs, but it's there to basically cover expenses for program costs, which is basically the way we set our price points.
Right, and I'm certainly not suggesting that you make it a profit center. I understand that it was there, but it kind of does speak to the idea of, well, how much does it actually cost to run some of these programs on a per individual attendee basis? And the second part of that question is going back to the programs / instructors. I'm looking at all of these areas like the water carnival, the after-school sports program, and all of that are paid items for the attendees. And could you just review for me again why that revolving fund isn't paying for some of these items, or has it just been judged it can't?
Not necessarily that it can't. The feeling was when we discussed it both in our rec commission and with the board at the time when we went forward proposing the adoption of the revolving fund, was that we felt there were still certain community events that we felt should be community sponsored. You know, large events that appeal to a broad group, not necessarily just, you know, the individuals that want to participate in, say, a set tennis lesson program, something to that extent, something that's open to the community at no charge, to make it easy for anyone that wants to participate. And these were the ones that at that time we decided that they wanted to be community funded. So that's why they've been set aside.
And I do believe you told us in the meeting that programs that have not had high attendance have been dropped.
Yeah, we have dropped a number of programs, and as well we've also created new programs that have had more interest, better numbers. Certainly if we're running a program out of the revolving fund and it's not covering costs, it's not cost effective, and we certainly, if that's the case, then there's probably not the interest to want to keep running it, then we do drop those programs.
Dave?
On that same line, there was nothing mentioned, you know, you've been fundraising, I guess that's the best way to characterize it, for next year's Old Home Day celebration. People have been donating money. Where is that accounted for, or how is that accounted?
It's through a special revenue account. Jeff may be able to answer that better. It's actually typically we fundraise to run that year's. So for example, we may have a slight carryover in the special revenue account going into next year. But typically all the fundraising we've done this year was to pay for the 2011 celebration.
And weren't you collecting already because the anticipation of next year's being a special celebration? Or am I mistaken on that?
You may be thinking of the Bicentennial Committee, which is separate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Sue? Bicentennial Committee, is that active? And
It's not within my budget.
it isn't, okay.
Anything else?
Fred?
That's it, all right. So we, I guess we'll make the motion that the budget remains as proposed by the selectmen at $223,382.
Croc TV.